Here's another title I can get behind. Night of Violence sounds good to me. Let's do it. Let's see how much violence there is, starting with the IMDb plot. Employees celebrate winning a lawsuit against a town, only to find themselves besieged in their office by vengeful locals determined to make them pay for ruining their lives. All right. Vengeful locals. Sounds good. Bring in the violence. Even better. All good stuff. Maybe or maybe not. We'll see here in a moment. So yeah, this is another screener review here for a film premiering. I believe it is. It's premiere at Fright Fest. Minor twists and turns. I wouldn't say it's hugely on that, but maybe a touch here and there. So we'll try to keep this spoiler free, kind of. Again, this is going to be playing at Fright Fest, and I have a link to the press release for that, and I will try to remember when I post this to include that down below if you guys want more information about the film. May not be as familiar with it since it's making its premiere, but I'm sure it will be played elsewhere and come out further later down the line. So for you guys want some information about it, try to keep that down below for you as well. So getting into the night of violence here, well, I'll say that in a minute, but basically, we have here an office setting. I guess it's a pharmaceutical company, something to that effect. And they've, I guess I should say, but that's, what's, where it is and so forth. But I guess the opening, is kind of interesting because they're basically playing a commercial for this drug that this company has created. And I guess it is to kind of stop pain. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a painkiller or something like that. But, it almost starts off with, some of these kind of ridiculous commercials that we see all the time for, drugs and so forth, where, people are like, oh, I have pain, blah, 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 and this and that. But then it kind of flips on it and kind of has a hilarious little touch to it. Some pretty crazy stuff happening. So I thought that was a good kind of funny way to start the film. And then I was kind of thinking, we're going into a horror comedy here, but there's probably not too much funny after that. Maybe a moment or two here or there, but definitely not a horror comedy. But I thought that was pretty interesting take on twisting some of these ridiculous drug commercials that we see all the time. Anyway, moving forward, we're into this company here, and they're celebrating the drugs, celebrating the win in this case. We get introduced to a couple of the characters here. One guy, he's, I don't know if you want to call him nerdy, but maybe kind of in that respect. He's got a good friend with him there. They have some interesting conversations going on early on. There's another woman we meet, and you can just say that maybe this guy and this girl, maybe they kind of like each other, but maybe don't really say it and so forth. So that kind of thing is kind of going on. We meet the boss, and maybe a couple of other characters here early on. As that kind of sets up, and I think I got a little anxious early, even though the movie's just a little less than an hour and a half. But I get a little anxious early because after that funny opening there, we started kind of settling into this office scene, and I'm like, let's get to the violence part, and I'm just like, okay, where's the horror? I'm not gonna say they took a long time getting into it, but it felt like a long time. I was just like, let's get to the violence here that you're telling me that there's going to be. I was getting a little anxious there because they start setting up with the characters and introductions, and I guess there's a party going on. They're celebrating, and get everybody to move to this party area. But there's a conversation or two here and there that kind of set things up about what's going on, and some things between the characters, and what's going on with the case and this drug and so forth. So it is kind of important, but still, I was just like, let's move towards the violence. I was getting a little anxious. But eventually we do. We get some guys, I guess they come through the loading dock, and they look like they're dressed to kind of cater the party, but they're going to cater in a different way. Eventually, they're going to get into the building. They're going to have some mask on, as you may see in the poster, or even if you watch the trailer. And they're going to proceed to basically wheel someone into the party room there. And it's kind of odd because, they have this person kind of tied up, and, you kind of see everybody kind of stop, the music kind of stops, and as opposed to anybody maybe trying to maybe freak out at that point or run or whatever, everybody just kind of freezes and kind of like, oh, okay, they're just wheeling somebody in. And then, it's like, okay, well, we need to get a reaction out of you. So, of course, they kill the guy. And then it's, and everybody got to run for their lives. I don't know, as someone who's into horror, as soon as they would have kind of started wheeling this guy in, I'd been like, yeah, you may start, wanting to tippy-toe backwards and out the room maybe. But maybe that wasn't going to work anyway, because there are other people here. And we get a pretty grand scene of these people en masse starting to kill all these employees. Employees are trying to escape the room, going here and there. And, it ends up being, maybe a couple of more masked people than I thought, as they kind of enter the building. I was trying to keep track. It was like 1, 2, 3, but then it appears that maybe there is, a little bit more than 3, not like a huge amount of people, but still enough to definitely make an impact. So yeah, you see a nice, glorious scene of violence. And let's just say the people in masks, they're pretty pissed off. And when they kill someone, it's just not like one stab. It is multiple stabs. It's like, we're just going to take your arm off and chuck it across the room because we're mad. We're mad. And we're going to make you pay. And so, yeah. We get a nice, fun scene here with people dying left and right and blood squirting and all that kind of good stuff. And then we kind of see some of the characters that we've just been introduced to, them kind of escape the room, the area. And then we're just, from that point on, kind of trying to follow these, this select few as they try to get out of the building. Like I said, at the beginning, maybe I thought it was a horror comedy, but it's not really. But there are, a few moments of comedy here and there in it. I think, some of that kind of prescribed to, I don't, he's not like nerdy, but I guess I could call him the nerdy guy. But, he, yeah, kind of, portrays as the smart guy and the guy who kind of went over like the safety plans or whatever. So, he's kind of trying to figure out a way to get out of it. And then, the boss guy, as he's becoming unsuccessful trying to get them out, has a couple of good lines of humor in there at him. So, while not, again, making this a horror comedy, there are a few entertaining lines there as they try to weave their way out of the building. So there's that going on. I would say, after that kind of scene there where they kill a good portion of the people, it does die down a little bit, and that was a little bit disappointing. I after that glorious scene there, I kind of want to follow the momentum and to just see, okay, we're following our main characters, obviously, but let's throw in a random employee that we just find in the corner and just kill them. Let's just throw it in there just for us to have some fun and watch, some murder, death, kill here. but no, it doesn't. So, it kind of gets away from that a little bit, and that was a little disappointing after that glorious scene there of blood and guts. Um, and it kind of dives a little bit more into, the characters and trying to escape and so forth. Obviously, mass people are going to come and then kind of, chase them, attack them, and so forth. But you're going to have to wait a little bit before we get another decent scene of blood and guts. And I think that nothing really matched that glorious scene at the beginning. So it is kind of one of those movies where as far as from a blood and guts kind of standpoint, it reaches its height really early on and then never really gets back there. Yeah, there's going to be some more death later on, but nothing that matches that. So that I would have to say was a little bit disappointing. I wanted that and I wanted more of that. And there were certainly, some more employees in there to do that with. But I guess they chose, once everybody kind of scattered and whatever, to kind of just keep to the main characters here and try to, find them, how they were going to find their way out. As they're kind of going through this, obviously the thoughts are in your head of what is going on, why are these people here, why are they really trying to kill them. You may have a guess or two, maybe not. They're gonna make you kind of wait to really unpack that and the reasoning behind that till way late in the film, which is fine. It is not. I don't think that as utter importance here. Maybe you have a clue early on or two, but they'll unpack that later on. But there's, like I said, there might be a small twist and turn in itself. So not going to really go into too much what's going to happen at the end. But I would say, like I said, as far as the blood and guts is concerned, it is good, but it is good really in the beginning. Yeah, there's some later on, but it's not going to match that at the beginning. And I guess the other thing that as I was kind of watching this movie is and kind of, you pick up on early on is, and I said this about another Fright Fest film that I also screened, is that the situation is very familiar. We've kind of seen, this situation done before. And as far as, office place, horror, trapped in a building, horror, something to that kind of effect. So, the setting is kind of similar. Just how everything plays out and who the killers are here and the reasoning, is maybe a little bit different. But as far as seeing trapped in a building, seeing employees be picked off, I think there was a time, several years ago where we saw 2 or 3 of these movies. I think Mayhem was one of them, and the Belko Experiment was another. Amazed that that I remember that too. I'm usually bad with remembering the names of these movies off the top of my head like that. No, I did not look in advance. But I think those were 2 in particular that kind of were an office place kind of horror. And here we have it again. So, so maybe not, totally original in that aspect of it. So, kind of as that going through, I'm like, okay, like we've seen this as well. I guess it's just, what is the reasoning behind these people? I thought, I based on the kind of infomercial commercial that we saw at the beginning, I thought that maybe we were going to get something in the line of where that was going, as far as the pain issue in that. And but I wasn't really clear if that really had a role in anything later on, as far as pain tolerance, I should just say. There might be other things going on, but as far as that, so I thought that might mix in it. Maybe I missed it, but I thought maybe that was going to be a piece of it. But I don't think it was the end, and I thought maybe if that was a piece of it in the way I'm thinking, and again, I don't want to say anything specific because then I might get into spoiler territory. Thought that might have been an interesting way to maybe make it a little bit different, but it is what it is. So if you're kind of watching it and kind of getting that familiar tone, that might be why. But again, I think if you're just looking, you see the title Night of Violence, so you're thinking blood and guts. At least you should. At least I was. Like I said, you will get it. You will get it good early on. You're gonna have to wait and then get some more at the end. Then everything's kind of explained and so forth later on. So I think overall with this one, I'm gonna go 2.5 pools of blood. I was kind of hoping for a little bit higher here, and that again is out of 5. But I think because it becomes too familiar and because they kind of left an area there where to me I wanted more kills and there wasn't. And I think at one point even a guy pulls out a gun and at first they're kind of using mostly like knives and swords and stabbing and cutting, and I thought they should have stuck with that. One of them eventually pulls out a gun, and I thought that made it too easy. Of course, if they just wanted to just shoot everybody, I guess they could have just done that and be done with it early on. Wouldn't have had a movie then, but whatever. But I think, there's a point where one of them has a gun and, that just makes it too easy. I would rather get down to the cutting and the blood and guts kind of thing. So, it kind of gives you something that you want, but then, kind of also seems a little bit too familiar in it to make it, overly stand out. So I think that's kind of why I'm going with 2.5. Was maybe thinking Night of Violence, we would get that up a little bit. But, it's okay. I think, again, if you're into blood and guts and so forth and this kind of movie, I think that there's still enough for you guys to enjoy. So with that, again, 2.5 pools of blood out of 5 for this one. So horrorscoryreviews.blogspot.com, so you can find all of my reviews, written and video. Certainly tons of video reviews for a while now, so you can just like and subscribe like everybody wants you to do here on YouTube. If not, no worries, it is okay. I thank you for your time regardless. Twitter, Facebook information down below as well, so feel free to reach out there. Maybe if you catch this at Fright Fest or somewhere down the road, or even in the comment section, if you want to reach out there once you see this eventually, feel free to do so and let me know what you think. And certainly, again, I will try to include a link to some more information about the film down below so you guys can get more information if you want to know more about it. I try not to spoil anything and then hopefully just gave you a good look at what to expect from it. So with that, I will catch you on the next review, horror fans.